Today, Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath, and this was actually going to be my Halloween special, but I was away last week. Things were pretty hectic. Halloween has now come and gone. I suppose I could have left this till next year, but really this is too good for me to leave until next year, so I'm going to do it now. I'm going to take you through how to play the song Riff by Mighty Riff. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the guitar solo, so let's do it. There we are, such a fun one to play. I think I've been enjoying playing that one since I was a teenager. And let me tell you a bit about the track. It first appeared on the Master of Reality album, came out in 1971. I think that was Sabbath's third album. And I think the first album where Iommi started tuning down his guitars, and I was reading a little bit about why he started doing that, and initially I think it was just because he was finding it quite painful to play in standard tuning. And as I'm sure many of you know, he had a quite horrible accident when he was younger and lost the tips of, I think, two of his fretting hand fingers. He famously replaced his fingertips with the melted down tops off of fairy liquid bottles, and I think by this stage in his career it's becoming quite painful when he decided to tune down the strings on his guitar. On this particular song, all of the strings are tuned down by 1.5 steps. And of course, one of the side effects of doing that was that Sabbath's already very heavy sound became even heavier with these down-tuned guitars. And it was quite a groundbreaking thing to do. I'm sure Iommi wasn't the first person to detune guitars in this kind of a way, but I can't really think of many other examples. And he certainly paved the way for all of those kind of heavy bands that were to come in the wake of Black Sabbath. So let me break this one down. There's nothing too technical going on here, certainly not by the standards of modern metal players who can be kind of fearsomely technical at times. This is quite an approachable song, so let's get started. Let's start with that tuning then, and all of our strings are tuned down a tone and a half, or a step and a half if you prefer. So it means that the notes of the open strings are now C sharp, F sharp, B, E, G sharp and C sharp. So give that a try. It's really nothing to be scared of. I mean, unless you've got a guitar with a vibrato arm, then it can complicate things slightly, or if you've got a guitar with a locking tremolo, then you probably do need to be scared. But I mean, seriously, give it a try and you will be rewarded with a lovely heavy sound. And the first thing you hear is this riff. And if you get this riff, really this will unlock the entire song, and it starts with this rhythmic pattern just played on the 6th string, and the whole song has got a bit of a swung feel to it. So what we're dealing with here in terms of the rhythm is a pair of swung eighth notes and then a triplet. So the rhythm is that kind of da 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 da. And the important thing here is the way you pick that rhythm. There are probably multiple options, but the way I've decided to do it is like this. We've got down, down on the eighth notes and then up, down, up on the triplet. And I'm pretty sure, looking at video footage, that this is the way that Iommi does it. And it might seem that I'm being a little bit kind of fussy about this kind of thing, but really the way that you pick something does affect the flow of a riff and just the way it feels, where the accents fall. So for me, this is the best way to do it. It just flows nicely and it sounds right as well. So I just want to practice the riff that way, start slowly, sort of get that programmed in to the muscle memory. It helps to have a little bit of palm muting with this riff as well. Just get that till it's completely second nature and you can just relax and flow with it. And then the band comes in and we're directly into the main riff of the tune, which is really just an extension of that basic rhythm that you hear right at the top. So we've got that same rhythm played on the sixth string, but we've got the addition of these power chord accents. So we've got lots of power chords in this tune, and most of the power chords, I think all of the power chords in this particular song, are played with a sixth string root, and that seems to be Iommi's preference. I mean, you could play some of these riffs with fifth string root power chords, but there is a heavier sound, I think, if you play those same chords with sixth string root. So here we've got a power chord at the 8th fret and then at the 7th fret. So I've just got the root note there, and then you've got the 5th, which is 2 frets higher on the next string. And my preference with power chords is to play them with my first finger, and then I've got my little finger playing the note on the 5th string, and that just seems a little bit more comfortable and relaxed for me. It's just kind of the natural shape of my fretting hand. That's where those fingers fall. And I just want to avoid any unnecessary kind of tension. You could of course play power chords like that with the first finger and third finger. I do sometimes do that, but it's not quite as relaxed as playing it like that. So give it a try both ways and see what works for you. But that's our opening riff. So we've got that rhythm, playing that 3 times I think, and then the power chord hits. And one important detail here is for the main riff, I think Iommi is thickening up the sound of the 6th string. He's got the extra note thrown in here at the 7th fret on the 5th string. It's the same note, that kind of C sharp note. This one is actually an octave higher, but he's playing both of those strings just to thicken up the sound. And I think sometimes you're just hearing the 6th string, sometimes you got the 6th string and the 5th string together. I don't think you need to be super fussy about that. It's just kind of, you know, I'm thinking about playing the 6th string, and occasionally I'm hitting the 5th string as well. And on this riff, important to use a bit of palm muting as well on those low strings, and then open up the palm mute on the power chords just to let them breathe. So then the main riff continues, and we've got a series of sustained power chords. So pretty simple to play. I'm just going to shout out the fret numbers here. So we're starting up at the 12th fret, up to the 15th fret, and dropping down to the 8th fret, and then the 10th fret, and then we're back to the main riff. So I think listen to the recording and you'll be able to hear exactly where those chords are played. Notice that sometimes we're playing those power chords twice with an up and a down stroke of the pick. So you're playing on the upbeat and then hitting the downbeat with a downstroke of the pick. So 2, 3, 4. That's our main riff. I think all of that is played a couple of times. Then we're into the verse, and the verse is a variation on the main riff, which goes like this. So very simple, really. It's got that same rhythm, and then we've got one power chord accent, but it's just the rhythm of this and the way that it works. All of the band are kind of going for that accent. It just works so well. So once again, we've got that kind of triplet based riff played on the 6th and 5th strings. And this time we're going to a power chord at the 3rd fret down here. So one thing that I noticed Iommi does, it's a little bit of a subtlety, but when he's playing the main riff, he's playing that 7th fret note with his 1st finger. But when he's playing the verse riff, you can play that same note with your 3rd finger or with your little finger, and that makes it just a little bit easier to get to that power chord down at the 3rd fret. So it's a small detail, but it does just help the whole thing flow a little bit more smoothly. So that the verse riff I would play like this. So it's that kind of syncopated accent. I think that power chord down at the 3rd fret is played on the and of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and. So it's a great riff, and there's actually an overdubbed guitar that you can hear, which is emphasising that accent even more. And that, I think, is playing this. It's a unison bend up here, so 15 on the top string and then bending 18 on the B string. Just at the same time as that power chord, the whole band is going for that accent, which just sounds great. The whole thing then repeats. We've got more of the main riff and those sustained power chords, another verse, another kind of sustained power chords bit. Then we've got quite an extended bridge section. One of the signatures of Black Sabbath and as kind of metal as a whole is you do have quite epic songs, often with changes in feel, changes in tempo. So for the bridge of this song, the first part of the bridge of this song, we've got this riff. So little single note riff played down in the open position, and you could think about this riff as being an E blues scale based riff. So the notes of the E blues scale, incidentally, I know I'm down tuned, so that it's not actually the E blues scale, it's the C sharp blues scale or whatever it is, but I think it's easier just to talk in terms of standard tuning so we don't all get hopelessly confused here. So we've got two parts to this riff. These are the notes that I think it is. It's a little bit hard to hear on the original recording, but we've got... And then the second half of the riff, a little bit different, and then if you put all of that together, then we've got a change in feel and another bridge section, which is more of these sustained power chords. Pretty straightforward to play. I'm just going to shout out the fret numbers where your first finger falls for this one. So we've got 12 to 15, back to 12, then dropping down to 7 and 6, and then we've got a slide from 6 to 7 and a slide from 9 to 10, and we're repeating, but on the repeat we're actually going to 10, 9, and then back up. Quite simple to play, but make sure you're playing it accurately with a bit of authority, and you really focus on getting the right tone with those power chords. Then I think we've got another verse, more of that main riff, and then we're heading into the solo. And it's actually two solos you're dealing with here, one in the left-hand speaker, one in the right-hand speaker. And when it starts off, you think it's just going to be a straight double track, but then quite quickly the two guitar parts diverge, and you've actually got slightly different solos played in each speaker, which is quite an interesting effect. And really here we've got quite a lot of minor pentatonic noodling, and I say that with the greatest of respect to Mr. Iommi and his lead style, which I do really like. It's very influential. And I suppose by modern standard, it's a little bit sloppy, this kind of soloing. And certainly you listen to a lot of modern metal players and they're super precise and technical. But for me, I'd far rather be listening to Iommi soloing in this kind of old school metal way than I would listening to some of these more modern metal players. So I'm not going to break down this solo note for note. What I've actually done is transcribe the solo that I'm hearing in the left-hand speaker, and I might just try and play that through for you to start with. But I think the best approach with a solo like this is just to skim through it and just take some ideas and some licks here and there. But let me try and play the solo. I'm just going to have to read this because I've not memorised it, so this might not be exactly what's on the record, but it's close to this. So something along those lines is what you're hearing in the left-hand speaker. But as I say, rather than learning this solo note for note, I'm not discouraging people from doing that. If you are more of a beginner, you've never played some of these kind of pentatonic ideas before, it might actually be worth learning a solo like this. But my approach would be just to skim through it and just steal some ideas, basically. Just take some licks and some phrases and make them my own. And it might mean just changing a few details here and there, maybe streamlining some licks, changing some rhythms, maybe adding in some extra notes to resolve to, and then you've got some licks which you can use and make your own. So I've just got 5 licks here. It's just kind of taken from this solo, and the first one goes like this. He plays this idea several times in the solo. All of this is played in the 12th position, this kind of pattern 1 of the E minor pentatonic scale, starting with a bend at the 15th fret on the B, and then playing this note twice at the 12th fret on the top string. And coming down the scale, we've got this bend at the 14th fret on the 3rd string, and it's kind of bent up 1 fret. It's not a full bend here, it's a slightly bluesy bend. And you can just resolve that to the root note if you wanted to. So that's a pretty nice lick, I think. What about another one? Let's have... It starts off with that classic sort of rock and roll device, bend at the 14th fret, then 12 on the 2nd, and then on the top string. Another bend at 15 on the 2nd string, and then coming down the scale, and a similar bend at the 14th fret on the 3rd string. So that's a nice one. And lick number 3 might be... So most of these licks are all based on that triplet kind of feel, da 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 da, but you can sometimes swing the notes as well, so da 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 da. So that's what's happening at the start of this lick. So, and you got a triplet, and then you're ending with that swung 8th notes on the last beat. So that's a useful little phrase. And I've got a further lick here. How about this? So this one is a great way of getting from pattern 1 up into this little box in pattern 2. So it starts in a similar way to a previous lick, and sliding on the 2nd string and ending on our root note. And then finally, I think this is my favourite one. It goes like this. So we're up here on the top string here. This is kind of a blues scale lick. We've got frets 17, 18 and 15. We're going to hammer on and then 2 pull-offs. And you can just play around with that phrase. You can change the rhythm a little bit if you want to, or just repeat it straight. And and then you just need some kind of way to resolve that lick, so I'm just playing. Another kind of cool and useful phrase. So that would be my kind of approach with this solo. Skim through it, grab some licks from it. I might even write those licks down, practice them, and just try and get them into my playing. Maybe try them in some different keys, try them with some different kind of rhythmic feels, and then you really get something out of someone else's solo without just kind of blatantly stealing the licks in a kind of obvious way. And that's really it. I think those are the main riffs in the tune. That would be my approach to the solo. There is just actually a little ending lick which I might show you. It's just more unison bends, so I'm bending at the 15th fret. I've got the unison note 3 frets back from that, and then I'm going up to 17, 18, and then up to the 20th fret. What gear am I using today, you ask? Maybe you're not asking, but I'm going to tell you anyway. And I don't have exactly Tony Iommi's gear. Obviously, I'm assuming with this he's using his kind of standard setup, which was an SG of one kind or another through Laney amps. I think that's the classic Sabbath sound, but I'm just trying to get close with the gear that I've got. So I've gone for my Les Paul. I think humbuckers are important here, so I've gone for my Les Paul, which is a 59 reissue. And amp-wise, I'm using my Marshall, which I've neglected a little bit recently, but it is a really great amp. This amp behind me, I think it's called a Studio Vintage Marshall, and it's a Plexi-inspired amp, but it's slightly lower wattage. It's a bit more kind of studio or bedroom friendly. It's still pretty loud, but nowhere near as loud as a full-on 100-watt Marshall Plexi, but I still think it's got plenty of that kind of Plexi character to it. So that's the amp. And I'm just using one pedal, which is my Analog Man Beano Boost, and I think that Iommi quite frequently used a Dallas Rangemaster, and this Beano Boost is based on that Rangemaster circuit. So I think this is getting, it's not exactly Iommi's tone, but it's close enough, I think, for a YouTube tutorial video. That's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you do want tabs, I'm going to be putting those up on my Patreon page, and I'll also put the backing track that I played over at the start of this video up there as well. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.